Between us stands a small espresso machine revolution, precisely the ECM Synchronika 2, featuring a completely revamped Faema E61 brew group. This particular espresso machine does a whole host of things differently and more efficiently. Among other things, today we will, for the very first time, talk about the heating time of a Faema E61 with a big smile on our faces. Let's get started right away. While Michel and I are currently at the world's leading trade fair in Copenhagen, the world of coffee, this innovative machine is now finally hitting the market. And that's actually already a hint that we've been able to use the machine for a few weeks. We tested it thoroughly. As always, we bought the machine ourselves to ensure an unbiased review. The test is fully independent. We always share our honest opinions with you, like in every single video, including today's. And still, we're happy that we were able to take a look at it. That way, when the machine hits the market today, you can already know what we think. And I have to say, in some areas, we have quite a few positive impressions, while in other areas, as always, we'll find our points to complain about. That's part of it. And for us, it's crucial. We're not saying you have to buy this machine or avoid it. Make the choice that fits your specific needs best. But what we want to do is give you a good overview. And we are just starting now, Michel, with the key data. Dual boiler with power, Ossenhauser ECM. What else can you possibly add?
Yeah, you know, just the typical Synchronika. Yeah, tank is a bit harsh, but it's just the thing actually weighs a hefty 72 pounds, definitely solid. So I lifted it onto the scale with Thomas just to make sure I don't break anything. But really, there is high quality material used here, which includes a lot of stainless steel. It's this incredibly massive and robust base construction with all the stainless steel parts you could ever possibly imagine. You can probably tell that not much has changed visually since last time, as it still looks quite similar.
Visually, not much has changed, but under the hood, they've done a bit more work.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because, and I think we can be the first to reveal this exciting fact, it's the first Faema brewing group in my thought process where we can start to brew coffee after 8 minutes.
After 8 minutes, this little machine gets hot, and of course, we verified that with various protocols again. Using our own protocol, we then look to see if it remains consistent with the WBC protocol. So the machine underwent a real stress test, enduring a full 8 minutes, which certainly is quite a significant statement.
8 minutes is quite notable.
To put it into context, so far we've been, I think at most around 17, 18 minutes. Are there perhaps like 1 or 2 Faema 61s that can handle that?
So Sanremo, you was then at 15 or 16, but that's like a copied Faema brew group, and you can't really compare it 100% accurately.
It looks completely different, at least. I wouldn't have seen it that well now.
Definitely, in terms of construction, it's attached and connected, also fully heated. And I think that's definitely the key phrase here. We'll just go ahead and put in an active heater system. And that's ECM's approach in the brew group. If you imagine, this brew group isn't like you'd think. It actually has a significant amount of mass. So we're actually talking about over 4 whole kilos of mass right here. Just imagine this particular thing alone, and the brass gets fully chrome plated. But that's a lot of material. And it's not like a lot of material with a ton of mass that's just not being used. There simply isn't a lot of space to put heating cartridges in. There are, however, 2 heating cartridges in this brewing group, one on top of the other. Each has 200 watts from the back. So we heat with 400 watts and can thus adjust the brewing temperature. Well, the brewing temperature, no, actually the mass temperature, very quickly to the point where you really don't touch the brewing unit. It's extremely hot.
I find that really fascinating because we've always been talking about it, and we've repeatedly said that it's like something from another era. It consumes so much power to heat up these machines for such a long duration, and now especially the waiting time when you really have to. Wait for potentially up to 3/4 of an hour, which can be quite frustrating. Here in this case, like 30 minutes, 35 minutes, I think, beforehand, you need to mentally prepare yourself for the espresso, and now it's like 8 minutes feels somewhat manageable. It's almost time this feeling lingers the whole time.
And I also believe, just as you mentioned, it seems outdated, this thermosiphon principle, where the water circulates and heats up mass. You can absolutely do that with a mass of 500 grams, but not with that much mass. It simply takes considerably longer.
That just takes time. But basically, the idea is when I then have the temperature, when I then have the mass at the right temperature, then I have a certain stability. That's something we want to re-examine today. If it's hot after 8 minutes and then overshoots or has large waves, it could indicate issues. We need to understand these dynamics better to optimize the process. Then, of course, it's no victory either. But we'll discuss that when we make the espresso. And I'm really curious to see how the espressos will taste for us today. Michelle, now I've already given a bit of a teaser about something exciting, and I did mention I feel like having an espresso soon, maybe in a few minutes, to lift my mood and spirits. The other thing is, all those other miners, their power consumption is indeed insane because the entire process ends up taking such a long time. How is it now? If we use both of these heating cartridges here, when we heat them up to the maximum temperature, will we still end up with the same overall power consumption in the end?
I think the consumption will be similar, yeah.
Okay, so in terms of power consumption, it's basically a similar story we are dealing with here. Can we all agree on that?
Absolutely. It's not a massive power consumption, but there are also dual boiler or single circuit machines that consume less when we only turn on the espresso boiler. We are only at the espresso boiler at 0.17 kilowatt hours. To put that in context, a thermoblock needs at best 0.08. Single or quality dual boiler machines with an espresso boiler run at 0.12 and 0.13. So it's a bit more, but it's not a whole world around.
No, I think so too. Just an espresso. Under 0.2 is actually really quite a good range. And 0.3 is not 0.4, which we measured before.
And what we definitely notice is the moment we bring in the steam boiler, we still have the same sizes. It's 0.75 liter espresso boiler and a 2 liter steam boiler. So you still have a lot of water to heat up. And yet, with our protocol, where we don't have to wait as long, for the 5 brews, using both, we get 0.31, which is, I'll say, a bit more energy consumption than a classic 2-circuit machine, or like a lower quality heat exchanger in terms of power consumption.
Yes, middle branch circuit, Michelle, we have discussed the heating time required for the espresso, and I believe that's really the main question people often ask. But when we talk about heat up time, the question is, when can I start frothing the first cappuccino?
Yes. That's not enough after 8 minutes, because the machines are not just built for the European market, but for other markets where simply the performance we get from the electricity are lower than ours. And that's why the programming on the devices today is set so that we first only heat up the espresso boiler. That means the espresso boiler is heated up, plus, of course, towards 400 watts. Heating. Inside the brewing group. That means after these. 5.5 to 6 minutes, when the machine actually says, I'm almost there, please wait a moment longer. She still needs a bit more time. We've tried it too. She's scratching at 92, but really just barely. I think if you opt for a more classic roast, a bit darker or so, then that should work just fine as well, really. We always have a threshold where the first test must exceed 92 degrees, which is why it's these 8 minutes. Otherwise, 6.5 to 7 minutes would also be realistic. So, and then we first switch to the steam. And because we have 2 liters to heat up, it takes a total of 14 minutes, so that's another 6 minutes on top of that initial time. Or if you want to say after 6 minutes, 7 minutes it stops in the front, then it takes the same amount of time again for the steam boiler. So if you brewed the first espresso after exactly 8 minutes, you'd need to wait another 3 full minutes to generate enough steam for frothing milk at the highest level. Important. Otherwise, it might take an extra minute to bring that in relation. But those last 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 bar don't make a world of difference, but it needs a bit more.
I find it quite fascinating as a phenomenon. When we actually heat up such a brewing group without the heating units, it takes us 20 to 25 minutes. The boiler with 2 liters is still basically warm in about 6 to 7 minutes. That's interesting. So this is roughly the time you should plan for, and I would say that's the main innovation of this machine, setting it apart from typical ones with its advanced features. This truly showcases ECM, and I really think it's very nice that with this old classic look, you can actually do something quite different and innovative. So out of lethargy and into a vibrant state of dynamism. That's a bit of the motto. And yes, I'm definitely excited. So I'm really happy that it's being showcased there. And I truly believe this machine with this particular look, with this unique brew group, it just naturally has a large community of dedicated enthusiasts who are so into this machine. And now they find a machine here that can go fast too. Yeah, great, right? For that, the Faema E61 with a quick heat up, we can say that the ECM Synchronika 2 works.
And the brewing groups are firstly super durable and will probably still have spare parts in 30, 40 years. So I think that's also an area that works well. And we've always questioned whether it's still relevant in today's context. And I believe this is now a step in the absolutely right direction. I think additionally one can say that this is definitely also a revision. You already know the display that ECM uses on various devices or on Profitec devices. This has now been integrated here, enabling a preliminary testing function. We can discuss that later, but it also provides more adjustment and easy setting options on the display for greater control and flexibility.
Michel, let's stay here for a bit longer. We likely won't get much more news now, but let's see if any last-minute updates or additional information come through soon. What can we do with display?
You have various setting options. You have brewing temperatures, of course, you have on and off times. You can also program 2 starts per day. That's also really quite simple and very accessible. You have an eco mode that you can set up easily, and you have a convenient pre-brewing function. That was truly thrilling because we're not huge fans of the basic pre-infusion method. However, there are definitely better ways to enhance the overall flavor experience. Because you have to imagine it like this. You naturally have a mechanical brewing opening, brewing start, so the access to the coffee is completely open, and we have a classic 50-liter rotation pump. That means the only way to use a pre-brewing function there is turning it on, turning it off. That means we actually increase the performance of the pump, saturate the puck, which takes around 4, 5 or 6 seconds depending on the coffee, take a pause and then go back to high pump performance. And that can, especially when you hit it for the second time, because you have already a constant pressure on it, but then once you build up the full pressure again, this can also promote something called channeling in the process. We have here, we see the combination of the Faema brewing unit with the pre-brewing chamber. And even though it might make a difference the second time around, don't get me wrong, I don't mean hitting it, since the brew group is still saturated with water. But especially the first time, we have a slower flow. That means the group reduces itself via the giggler, optimizing the system for better performance. This is the line that leads to it. You can use different sizes, or rather different sizes are installed there. And that significantly reduces the initial flow to the brew head. However, many manufacturers do not differentiate between vibration and rotary pumps. The giggler is exactly the same. And that simply reduces the amount of water that goes to the brew head. Now, the Faema brew group is designed so that you have the pre-brewing chamber down here. It has a filling volume of somewhere between 18 and 20 milliliters. And now, what we can display with the pressure gauge is that we actually get 9 bars of pressure at the brew head, and then it takes approximately 2 seconds to reach there, and then it makes a short pause for 1 additional second, and then only then does it continue to rise up to the remaining 9 bars, ensuring optimal brewing conditions. And that's exactly the filling of this pre-brew chamber, because it opens at 2 bar, give or take. So we're theoretically getting 9 bars of pressure. We've significantly reduced that using the steam wand. Then we release and end up with roughly plus or minus 4 to 5 seconds, despite the rotary pump. First to the full brew pressure with our measuring device. That means it's an attachment like, for example, the gauge, the temperature measuring device. So it means without the classic cake fullness, so without coffee, but just exactly the performance that comes with the coffee cake. And then it was very exciting to see that afterwards the pressure remaining on the coffee cake, respectively, to the measuring device, which allows a small bit of water to pass through, just like the coffee, like the brewed coffee.
For those who keep asking, the measuring devices are calibrated to permit 80 milliliters during brewing time.
Right? And then you can really see quite nicely the pressure drops very, very quickly. It takes about 3 to 4 seconds to reach around 2.3 to 2.5 bar.
After stopping?
Not manually stopped, but the pump stops. And then it stays at 1.8, 1.6, but within a second, since the water is fully saturated, we put 9 bar on again to maintain pressure and smooth operation. This keeps the system efficient. It was really exciting to see that with the Faema Brew Group, we could practically do almost anything, achieving great results and new possibilities. We didn't experience any channeling. It was really quite nice. Had a lot of fun. Great.
I think that was nicely explained. Thanks for the details. At the beginning, you mentioned that sometimes we're not so happy with this type of pre-brewing. But with that, you weren't specifically referring to the E61, but rather to brew groups in general and how their performance differs. Machines that work differently like other models on the market that don't have this exact Faema unit, because with this unit and all the others Faema units that are available on the market, you will definitely notice the differences. With the Faema 61, this is a strength. That's why this is the distinguishing moment. For this particular test group, that is absolutely invaluable. You see now, or have just heard again right here. What I find super exciting, and maybe I'll add this here again, is that pre-infusion in general is a good tool that often makes the shots better and helps us. Although the pressure doesn't rise immediately or that quickly, we are still immediately high with the temperature. What I find striking. So we are right on this target temperature.
Yes, because we have a thermosiphon. So the circulation of the water remains. It's just another direct heating. And that really led to some very delicious shots. We'll have an espresso with Artoka later, as done before. And also from the programming side, the machine doesn't limit itself. You can add water for a maximum of 10 seconds at the beginning. 10 seconds is quite a lot. I would probably choose around 3, 4, 4 again, and maybe 6 seconds, depending on the type of coffee. And then you have a pause option of 40, 50 seconds if you want. We have now experimented a bit with 13, 14, and also occasionally with 15. Exactly, but yes, there are actually quite a few different play options available for a Faema 61 model.
For a Faema 61, which you could, of course, upgrade yourselves if you truly wanted to do so. Here, with such a flow regulator and so on, anything is possible. Of course, ECM also offers this. Of course, you can buy it directly like that, but otherwise, it's a machine without pressure profile and without flow rate.
One could add a manometer so the pressure can then be... Exactly, the play possibilities are then relatively high. We also thought it would actually be cool to regulate it manually. The reproducibility, however, then might slowly become a bit more difficult. Of course, with the program preparation, it's just noticeably more consistent.
Michael, the machine will first position itself alongside the current model on the market, but it will replace it medium term. Now with the new technology, it will cost around 200 to 300 euros more. So we say, or we know, we'll find out today. Let's see how it actually plays out in the market later. And otherwise, it's an ECM Synchronika. So the external dimensions haven't changed. She is still just as heavy as ever. Acoustically, I felt that she's gotten a bit quieter over time compared to how she used to be.
Had the same situation actually. It's not a big numerical difference, but we're currently at 55 decibels. We also don't have much cup vibration on top. That works really well. The rotary pump is well installed. It all fits. And as for the measurements, you might remember them from the old machine. You're with 7 supports at a depth of almost 60 centimeters. So here we are again on the topic of tabletops. It absolutely needs to be 60 centimeters deep.
Michel, I hate to correct you, but it's actually 54, not 60.
54? Then I guess we really have to...
So it's important because the machine at your home has 54 and it's equally quiet, ensuring a peaceful environment.
Now you just had to go ahead and mention that.
Had to mention that. It's honestly quite remarkable and impressive. No, actually it is 54-55. We also learned that from our community, from you guys who always give us so many comments. What we learned from you, thank again, that 1 decibel is quite a lot indeed because it is increasing in a logarithmic curve. 1 decibel is way more. And it's not that significant, but it is actually 54 decibels.
Then 54. The depth is almost 60, that's correct. Width of 33, height of 41, and depth without portafilter of 48.
Exactly, so a hefty espresso machine that brews wonderful espressos just the way you want them to be. Heavy, fruity, or something else. That's exactly what we'll do in the next chapter.
Very soft.
I really like this. There is a lot of caramel in it. A lot of caramel indeed. A very nice body. It's definitely quite on the juicier side here, I would say, without a doubt. But wonderfully balanced, all nicely integrated.
Really tasty. Super dense. So Toca is a Mexican coffee, and actually not quite a body bomb.
But here, yeah, it does have body, but it's juicy. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, cool. Nice extraction. How did it feel to be working on this?
That was always quite good.
Well, I think that looked actually pretty smooth. And that's honestly not on you. But it really bothers me a lot that it keeps flicking its tongue like that all the time.
Yeah, but ECM has always done that for many, many years.
Yes, and that is exactly why we always will. So I'm going to go ahead and say it now. I mean,
it's a really nice portafilter, but the spouts are just a bit too wide, which tends to lead to an annoying shifting that occurs every now and then.
Yes, and I mean, then it only shifts slightly, but still, you have to rearrange all the cups from their positions, especially if you are filming it for a video or a tutorial. It's noticeable, even if it all goes into the cup, but then it runs along the edge and barely makes it, almost spilling over. And I've got to say, maybe it's really worth it to change something meaningful there in the medium term.
Yes, so we can give feedback again.
We have certainly noticed it. We indeed have already done it and thoroughly tested it. We really want a straight, nice, continuously flowing action, just perfectly straight into the cup and not needing to reposition it at all in any way.
No, but otherwise, really the preparation is actually fun. You can really use it. You can definitely experiment with it. I had 4 seconds of full power during the brewing process, and then I can still count a total of 9 seconds of pause. A duration of 13 seconds, then it ends and the extraction procedure begins. The total brewing time ended up being just under 35 seconds. Honestly, I don't think I would change much more about it. Except for a bit of that cocoa-like aftertaste. It could be a bit juicier, but you could experiment with that.
How was the temp like?
She was particularly impressive when it came to meticulously following the detailed coffee maker protocol. Sure.
It speaks after 8 minutes there, temperature very good, wonderful, nice. Actually on the coffee maker protocol then, so we had to adjust the offset just a bit. It was set to 2, we changed it to 0. So we basically reduced the 2 difference again, and we're then actually right at the exact point we needed in the coffee maker protocol. And then we had a deviation, standard deviation over 5 measures, which we always measure after over 5 minutes. So 1 measure each minute, 0.77 and a bit.
That's it?
That's a very good value, as you rightly say. Then WBC protocol, and I think that's also a discipline that a dual boiler in a price range of around 3,000 euros must be able to achieve. So that means we will wait for an entire hour and then start with a series consisting of 14 rounds, gradually reducing the interval from 10 full minutes down to just 35 seconds. And first of all, listen up everyone, we are actually hotter, a full 1.5 degrees hotter on average, which is quite significant and worrying. And secondly, we have been experiencing a higher hour of offense lately, making us slightly worse in the difference, which in turn affects our overall statistics negatively. We're then at 1 degree, I can give you more details. Speaking of the coffee maker protocol, to look back at that briefly, I find it quite impressive. We start after 8 minutes. Yes, after 8 minutes. And then we take these 5 references. Let's take a closer look at the first reference. And then we have a difference of 1 second 4 to 25 over the entire reference with a maximum of 1.7. That's now medium. Across all 5 references, we have a difference of 2.15, which we should consider carefully in our calculations. Thus, across the entire size of all 5 covers, we go ahead and measure the lowest point from the 4th one, making sure we get an accurate reading. Second to 25.91, 31, and as the highest point 93.46. So that's a good value for the coffee maker protocol. With the WBC, it spreads out a bit more, but it's also a much larger series, of course. So what we have here is a minimum temperature of 92.51 degrees Celsius and a maximum temperature of 96. And that is then a maximum temperature difference of 3.97. When compared to other dual boilers, this honestly isn't bad at all, but it certainly isn't a better value either in this specific context. So there are 5-6 others that perform a bit better. What I think is really important is you have to consider, from my perspective, are you the ones who always want to make an espresso after 8 minutes, or are you the ones who always want to make an espresso every single hour of the day? There is a distinct difference. If we look at the average in the Kaffeemacher protocol over these 5 extractions, it's about 92.5. Then we have the average in the WBC protocol after 1 hour at around 95. That means I might choose a middle ground option or a compromise between the two. So 92.5 fits perfectly, now without offset. For longer wear, I'd suggest setting them to 92 or 91 for better overall comfort and support, ensuring they remain comfortable throughout extended periods of use. To maybe be a bit lower in temperature during the first shot, but throughout the course of the day to actually be much more within the target range of temperature for optimal performance. Yes?
Exactly. And in the Kaffeemacher protocol, it was the 4th best machine we have ever measured.
Exactly, with this data transformation we're doing now. I have to say, we haven't always nailed it like this in the past. It's true, there were instances when we missed the mark slightly.
That's true, but from the tests, it was really precise, and that's actually a lot of fun. And if you let it run a bit longer, then maybe a degree over. But it's with many machines, we always discuss things like offset for the first shot, or offset for you leave the machine on all day.
So it is especially notable with many Faema.
Faema brew groups, yes, totally, absolutely. But here we are again with the topic that it's actually an older technology that is being successfully maintained with precision.
Yes, exactly. You have less of it when you naturally have machines equipped with many temperature sensors. So that's the main topic we want to discuss about temperature, including its various measurement and control aspects. Espresso tastes good, espresso is great, preventive infusion is fun, and so that is also fun. So that's one discipline. Check, it works. But how the foaming process and best techniques work, we haven't fully discussed or reviewed that yet.
Michael, we haven't talked about that yet, but we can now. We'll make another round of cappuccino and then I'll tell you how long it takes.
I'm genuinely very curious now.
If it now has volumetrics, then we can definitely use it for our catering services. That's really cool. Really good. So creamy. Man, why do I always... Look, oh, that turned out really well. No, seriously, you know.
If you praise yourself like that, I can't praise you.
No.
I was just about to say, Michelle, you know, he's gotten really, really good at what he's doing.
That turned out really, really great. What an utter load of total crap. My goodness.
Are we sharp?
No, just the camera.
At least the camera. The espresso is quite bold and strong. The contrast is definitely sharp, Michelle. You did an outstanding job. Yes, thank you very much for your work.
I love you too. It was really fun to dream, truly. Yeah.
When I reminded you to smile, you actually went ahead and did it with a cheerful expression.
Because, well, 2 liters don't always have to be necessary, but if you have 2 liters combined with 135 and now we have 2.2 bar here, that's simply just raw power, my friend, plain and simple.
That's some real power right there. How many seconds does it take to hit you?
30 seconds of water heating, just like we always do in our test protocol. This isn't the best machine, but it's actually very good. It's really fun to use. It has enough features, power. You can also have the entire family over for an enjoyable brunch gathering and serve everyone amazing coffee and great froth. And yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it just simply makes it truly fun.
I would say so too, so discipline. Making cappuccino also very well indeed, quite delightful. Not the fastest, but a really nice, consistent pressure performance we get here. And with that, we are basically, I would say, on the verge of reaching
this.
We are now on the final stretch of this video, Michel. We can conclusively confirm that this is the ECM Synchronika version 2 model we have been discussing. Much of it has proven ECM quality and craftsmanship, maintaining high standards. Sizes remain the same, offering consistency and familiarity. You can place just as many espresso and cappuccino cups on it as with any Synchronika because it's simply a massive, large machine. And then you now also have this quite considerable heat up time. Power consumption has thus also noticeably improved because you still have to put quite a lot of power into it and then also heat up the big steam boiler. It's still quite considerable in terms of the energy consumption and effort that are required to make it work properly. Not really comparable to non-boiler machines, but it is definitely considered a good value in the realm of boiler machines. We can definitely say that. Yes, and then I believe it's such a machine. We already discussed this a bit earlier. It's a Faema E61, but it is certainly more advanced now. And I would say, looking at this machine and others with similar technology, the biggest pain point has definitely been addressed here, thereby significantly improving its overall usability and efficiency. So, what exactly was improved? The hardest part. From my perspective, it was definitely the heating time, which used to be a major issue before. Sure, there's also the temperature issue, with many preferring to heat things up a bit more towards the E61 groups. I don't find that particularly dramatic here, even when we look at our curve. And in that sense, from my point of view, the best or the worst of the machine has been improved, and that makes me happy.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's great. And now I think, so is this brew group still acceptable?
Yes, absolutely. That's true for sure.
I think it's just super durable. We all know that. And I believe we need to remind ourselves of that over and over again. We don't yet know if many thermoblock thick film heaters will still brew as precisely in 15 years as we know the brewing group will. Okay, we don't have a machine where we can take measurements again after 15 years, but if you maintain and clean it properly and all that, what could break here?
No, not much will break. No, and yes. I think they did it very cleverly indeed, because there are people like you who absolutely want to have this specific brewing unit. And now he gets this brewing group and he gets it quickly and warm, and that's nice. I think that is a good move. Making the topic clearer and more understandable for everyone, helping them effectively grasp the essence. There will never be a machine or a brewing group that is extremely delicate and highly precise in nature, but it can come close. Retrospectively or quickly balance the temperature because this is designed for mass, but in this specific context, I genuinely believe that everything was done correctly, so let's go ahead and say a big bravo. Thank you very much indeed. We're truly glad we had the wonderful opportunity to test the ECM Synchronika 2, which is now readily available on the market, I believe, and yes, have fun with it. How are you liking it so far? What are your thoughts? Do you think these are the right steps, or would you still be considering purchasing a 61 Pro Group machine instead of this one? This machine, or do you say no? Definitely not. There's so much else on the market. I'd be interested to know. Feel free to write it in the comments. And otherwise, we'll see you next week with the next video, or maybe in a few days. Take care, see you soon, drink good coffee.